this way I see there is still a light in me. Carry onward thankfully, and let the light see what it sees.
Like a question, for example, like, is it too much what I experience when I try to meditate, and I just like thoughts going like racing cars? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, is everybody like that, or it's just me? Or yeah. But then, like, I also want to talk with you because I've been on this trying. I've been on this, and many times I've said to myself, no, I don't have to do this now. This is kind of so hard, and I'm so young, and maybe that's not what I want because it seems so serious. Also, somehow, it seems like a huge responsibility also to do that. And so I thought to myself, like, maybe that's not the time. But then again, it comes like this impulse to, no, just go on. And it's a very, like, a very subtle voice, very loving inside of me, this impulse, just go on, this is something very good for you. And so then I try again a meditation, I try again, like, to connect with the books of Rudolf Steiner. Like, I read them, but sometimes I read them just out of fun or like out of knowing more, mm-hmm. that knowing more thing of the anthroposophy. Mm-hmm. And then I try to connect with, I don't know, I try to read Philosophy of Freedom or Theosophy again, just to, and try to get in there really, like, in a deeper level, yeah, this trying somehow. And then again, away from that, and somehow that's not working. Yeah. And do you live in, where do you live now?
Currently I'm living in Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, I want to be with people that talk like that work like that. Uh-huh. Because I come to Donna and I have this feeling, oh, Donna, like, there is the building and there is the people. Out there I can find a way of, do you say, transcending, of becoming more, of being spiritually more active, and not only doing my job, waking up and eating and and then hanging out, but there's more. So there's more on my daily basis, which is more spiritual. Yeah. If I go there, then I'll have that, and then I come here and I don't really have it.
Yeah.
I have some beautiful moments in some congresses or having a talk with someone here and there, sure. But I feel like there is a huge intensity in me of, like, sometimes I also thought in the early days, like, becoming a monk or something, just to have every day and every time this kind of, I'll say it like that, like, just having God with me, yeah. Mm-hmm. Or having the spiritual world with me, and feeling myself so connected to myself and to life and all the events that happen and come to me. But then, as I said, I just get lost again somehow. And then I hope again that Donna will help me. And then I thought, as you were talking, I thought, like, oh, where are you? I want to go there.
Yeah. Well, look, in a certain way, what you're expressing are expressions of someone that is on the path of inner development. You do get this sense that something is asking more of you. Mm-hmm. So what is that something that's already working with you? Yeah, right? What's already working with you? And then you have these experiences in your meditation where you feel like all this, noise goes off, but that's actually a sign of having stepped forward a little bit in the meditative path. So it's not an uncommon picture. Many people who start meditation, they maybe have this grace of this space, of this peacefulness, of this quietness, but sooner or later you get to the point where they're whizzing thoughts, or I call it 6 radio stations going off at once. Mm. And that means that you've started to loosen in your everyday thinking. It's not so densified, contracted to materialism, and it's beginning to have that loosening. And as it loosens, you actually start opening up to what is often called the astral world. Sometimes it's called the elemental world, sometimes the soul world. So it depends on who's speaking about it and from where they're speaking. But in common language, in the most common way of putting that today, it would be talked about as the astral world. And those first parts is filled with thought forms. Now, the fact that you're listening slightly in your meditation to experience that means you've already started working inwardly. It's already begun. But that's just the first, they're the steps that you need to keep going through, go further. Then this longing that you have, in a way, this longing to be with God, it's an interesting experience for the soul, because that actually lives in most people, reveals itself at some point. This real desire to have that companionship on a more permanent basis, that there's always this companion with you. And that also grows. But in the stages of self-development and meditation, that does come and go. There's these moments, as you're experiencing it right here, where there are times where these beautiful moments of the connection, that everything is there, and then it leaves again. That's a part of the path. There does come a point where you no longer forget, and you remember who you are and why you're here as a consistent. And there is no forgetting. Of course, you still put on the mask of your personality and can go shopping and do your banking and all of the normal everyday things, but there's this constant companion that you can turn to at any time. And once that's there, that no matter when you turn, it's there. When you look at it, it's present. Then you know you have not, you've got to a plateau on the mountain. You won't fall back. But until you get to that point, it's good to keep going forward. Now, what often happens is, because we're not aware that these whizzing thoughts and these toing and froing is actually a part of the path, we think we're not on the path. We think, I'm not getting there, I'm not in. But actually that is a sign that you've already made headway. So I would say keep going. But I'm only saying what your heart says. Keep going. Definitely keep going.
Yeah.
And what's so extraordinary is that once you start walking the path, most of the reality of it, that someone that has walked it would say to you, your heart's already saying to yourself. And in a certain way, you trust in that connection. Now, I really understand what you mean about reading work in order to know more, to sort of interest yourself more. But try to work with that companion that's already working with you. Read what you're drawn clearly to read. Be where you are clear, this is where I need to be. Now, as you start to build that relationship, that will get stronger. And there will come a time where you won't forget and it won't be an oscillation. But the steps you've taken clearly mean you're on the path. You can't have those experiences and not be on the way. But don't turn back and say, okay, how would I increase that way? How would I not just turn to it when things are difficult or when there's some time on my hands, but how would I turn to it daily? And for me, that's what the meditative practice is every day there's a turning in and really connecting with that. And if people do that in various ways, but for me, meditation is the way of which I put aside everything that is not of that quality and be there. And then, of course, one goes about one's day, but more and more it becomes a consistent companion. And you learn more and more to trust that guide. But you know, the fact that you have these experiences and you really have this heart's voice already, this is already a very positive place to be. Now, when you take substance, of course, it gives you these experiences of the astral. It can't take you beyond the astral world. And the astral world is not where we're headed. We're actually trying to get through that to the true spiritual world. In the Eastern traditions, they would call it Devachan. But the true spiritual world is where the real wisdom, which can transform your being and help you bring something deeper into the world, lies. But we do have to get through that astral world. The difficulty with substance is that it can get you a little bit caught up there. Because it gives such intensified experiences, the desire body can then say, oh, that's what I want that intensity, I want to be clear, I'm in the spiritual world, I'm with this intensity. But the astral world is not the true spiritual world. It's something we need to pass through. And certainly once you start having experiences, they are so much more real than this so-called real world. But when they're coming out of your own inner activity that's progressed, it's very different than if a substance has caused you to open up to the astral world. Now, for some people, the fact that a substance has caused them to open up to the astral world has actually been the beginning of their seeking for something real. And the question that you have, does that opening through substance make it that much harder through your own activity? Well, that's a question that I also have carried for a long time around what's taking place in the world. So many substances are coming in, so many people are looking for experience, so many people are thinking that they can use substance as a way of accessing genuine spirituality, when in fact it does something that slightly distorts the path and potentially causes greater materialism. But the real work of meditation, the real work of taking hold of yourself, can correct all that. There is no doubt about that. It is corrective. Now, I have met a few people in my life experience that have come to realise that their substance use has shut the door and they can't get back. And they have to then bear that reality, that in this lifetime there is no more spiritual development. But that's, people that have taken it too far for themselves. And too far is so individual. For someone, that's 2 weeks of smoking marijuana. For someone else, it's 25 years of exploration. And so we don't know that too far. But what I would say is that those that have a connection to the heart have the force to get through the astral realm, because the heart is the love, is the bridge across the astral. And so there are people that I know that have really walked a substance path but have very strong heart forces, and they have managed to withstand the diversions. Yeah. So it's an interesting one. But look, there's absolutely no doubt to me from the experiences you're having that you're on the way. So the question would be, what would take you that next step?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's, sometimes you can meet someone that has walked the way, and it's very useful. Like I've met in Rudolf Steiner's work, such a benefit to fill with clarity the signposts. Because often you would not know, okay, these whizzing thoughts are actually a part of the meditative path. You think, I've definitely gone off track, or something's wrong, or it can't be this difficult, or what's happening. But to have it clearly described and experienced by others can be helpful. But, today we really make headway out of our own efforts. So what's useful in someone that's walked the path beforehand, or has actually can say to you, oh yeah, those boulders on the left, they're meant to be there, and then keep going, don't stop there. It's a great picnic area, but don't stop there. that can be very useful. But ultimately, it's all going to come from the efforts you put in yourself. And the great difficulty with substance is you don't put effort in, it does it for you. And so it doing it for you has a potential for leading you to places that you're not ready for, or has a potential of opening up doorways that you would have clearly discerned were not doorways to walk through had you got yourself there. Yeah. But it sounds to me as though you have everything that you need. Just this question, what is your next step?
I feel that my next step is related to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and it's also something I would like kind of to give on. Like, is that how you say it?
To pass on.
To pass on. That we long so much for recognition, we long so much to be loved, and then kind of tend to go to others for that. And I feel that my next step is to get that recognition from myself and that love from myself. And what you spoke yesterday with us was, for me, like this isolation. Well, how do you say it? Isolation? No. Yeah, isolation as... what was the word again?
Solitude.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel that maybe that has something, I mean, that speaks to me somehow.
Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it, that, we've learnt to enter into our inner life and in a certain way think clear thoughts, awaken to spiritual insight for ourselves. So the wisdom is there, and you can think it yourself, and in that you can actually have an understanding directly yourself. Then when it comes to love, we think love requires someone else stimulate that for us. But actually the path leads us to realizing not to look for love, but to give love. As you say, how would I pass it on? How would I develop a force that actually I can give, rather than this dualistic way that we've learnt to live, where everything is on the outside, and if I can only get it out there, I can fulfill it here. And it's difficult for people because they really want someone else to do it for them. I want the substance to give me the consciousness of the spiritual world. I want some initiate to tell me how to think about the spiritual world, and then I want some person to help me to learn to love. But at the end of the day, if you walk the path, it's about you generating that out of your own being, out of your own resources. And I think that's truly, once you have that awareness, that is really the next step. How would you cultivate love? Now for me, I'm working with that, and you can look at the other videos on the virtues. The 24 master principles around love are expressed there, because love is not sentimentality, it is so much more. And the work of love is really the work of our times. But to do that, one has to have one's independent, clarified thought processes. Otherwise you go into love as a subjectivity and a love as a need. If you can't think for yourself, if you can't be in yourself, if you can't manage yourself in your isolation and your solitude, you're likely to have a different relationship to love than if you can do that first. So once you're able to meet that and then enter into the sphere of the work of love, then it's to overcome fear, which most people that have some connection to the astral world will encounter on some level. And because the astral world reflects to us all the things in us that we'd otherwise not like to see in our soul, but it comes to us from the outside in. So there are certain aspects of the astral experience which are very fear-inducing unless we've learned to enter into the heart, unless we've learned to be able to cultivate love out of ourselves. So the next step after isolation and solitude, as being one of your tools and your great friends, is to work through fear to love. Now, love doesn't necessarily automatically bring up fear. In fact, it is the force that overcomes those experiences. But it is something that can be very challenging for people on the path. It is what pulls them out of that work. So just as certain experiences where your thinking gets rattled and you think this can't be the path, in the work of love, there's certain experiences that come up and you think this can't be the path, but actually it's about staying with it, working through it. And that is the next step, really. Once you have a capacity for clarified thought, then it's to really be able to build the power of love in your own being.
Walking home this way, I see there is still a light in me. Carry onward thankfully, and let the light see what it sees.